am now calling to order a regular meeting of the City Council, Tuesday, August 27th at 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councilwoman Rogency.
Here.
Councilman Dwyer.
Here.
Councilwoman McGee. Here. Councilman Boyke.
Here.
Councilman Noonan.
Here.
Councilman Lafferty.
Here.
Councilwoman Moore is present. We have a quorum.
Next item.
Next item is for adoption of the consent agenda. So moved.
Support Lafferty.
Discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogency is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is adoption of the agenda. So moved with discussion.
Support Lafferty.
Discussion, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. I have one item to add as 12A, I guess miscellaneous. It is for two members of council to be on the RFP for potential construction of the Warren Town Center, to be on the steering committee. We're putting this last minute. I just got this last minute because their first meeting is the 4th of September. So,
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Makers of the motion support the addition?
Without objection.
yes.
Thank you. I will call the question. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogency is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is 6A, calendar of pending matters. Motion to receive and file.
Support Lafferty.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion.
Oh, sorry. Discussion. Thank you.
Did you have a session?
Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Sorry. Next item is 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 13th, 2024. So moved.
Support Dwyer.
Discussion. Hearing none, I will call the question. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogency is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is 8A, approval of the bills of the general revenue fund. So moved.
Support Lafferty with discussion.
Discussion, Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you. I'd like to separate check number 670763 payable to Eddie Banco in the amount of $300.
Okay, so we will vote.
Support that motion with discussion. It is my understanding that now that Mr. Banco has been removed from the ZBA.
From
Or the
Civil
civil
service.
service, yes.
Okay, we'll vote on the original bill set first, and then we'll vote on, I'm assuming that's a motion to deny Mr. Lafferty?
I'll make that motion on the separated item.
Thank you. Okay. So this is to vote on the bills with the exception of 670763?
Correct.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogency is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is approval of check 670763
Motion to deny.
to Eddie Banco. Support.
Discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question.
Okay, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Call the question, Mr. Lafferty?
Yes to deny.
Ms. Moore?
Yes to deny.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes to deny.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes to deny.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogency is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is 8B, approval of the bills of the water and sewer system. Motion to approve.
Support Dwyer.
Discussion. Hearing none, I will call the question. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogency is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is 8C, receive and file the general fund revenue report. So moved.
Support Lafferty.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
8D, general fund expenditure report. Motion to receive and file.
Support Lafferty.
Discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is audience participation.
Thank you. First is Lori Harris. I'm sorry, I should have read before. Go ahead, Ms. Harris. I'm just going to read my little blurb. A member of the audience who would like to address the City Council this evening may do so by filling out a form located on the right side of the stage. This is a reminder that you have to write your name and address on the audience form. You have 3 minutes. There is a clock in front here that gives folks time of how long they have remaining, and this audience is for agenda items only. At the end of audience, we have additional audience participation for non-agenda items. Ms. Harris, your 3 minutes.
Hi, greetings to everybody. Hope you guys have power. I'm glad we have power here so we can get this meeting done. I want to talk about agenda item 11B, the public hearing. And I want to encourage whoever's here for this public hearing to make sure that you don't have a 3-minute limit in a public hearing. You can talk about what issues you have with this, and make sure you mention whether or not this company has addressed you, whether the planning department has addressed your concerns. In the past, when I've been to the Planning Commission about this issue, or been to the meeting, I was struck by how the neighbors had very valid concerns, and I felt like they weren't being addressed. So I want to encourage the people that might be here for that issue to not be afraid to speak. And I just want to remind everyone, I know there's something on here about disabilities. The ADA is a civil rights law, and we need to do better in our city with enforcing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is, looks like Ray and Victoria. You can each get 3 minutes if you would like, or come up together.
Good evening.
Good evening. We're residents of 3271 Unruly, just off of Trembleton. We've lived there since 1967. Now, we've been receiving notices that there's a motion to vacate a part of an alley south of Ruley, and I think that, I don't know who's supposed to benefit by that, but I know that there's a development being proposed. The density of that is shocking to us. Right now, when we go to Trembleton to go to Van Dyke, the cars are parked on both sides of the street. That small Mexican restaurant has a parking lot that's totally inadequate for their customers, and we have a great concern for that.
And if those buildings or apartments or homes are going to be developed, the traffic will be horrendous, and I don't know that everybody's aware of that. And also, lastly, with these storms coming up, we are the last people to get power turned on after a big storm, and sometimes it takes 3 days, and that little corner is always the last one to have power. So
I might just add, I think that it's illegal for the parking on both sides of Trembleton, just east of Van Dyke. I've called the police department a number of times. I've not seen any resolution to that problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is the end of audience. Next item, Madam Secretary.
Next item, 10, announcements. Madam Chair.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you. We are going to have a vacancy on the ZBA come October, so anyone that's interested in applying for the ZBA, you can go online, there's a form there, or you can call the council office and they can help you there. Also, this past Saturday was the birthday bash and the Polish Day Parade. Councilman Boyke and I were both in the parade, and one of our local Polish fellows, Terry Wisniewski, drove us, so it was a lot of fun. It was great seeing a lot of people I hadn't seen in a long time, and I think people had a lot of fun. So that's it for me.
Any additional announcements? Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you, Madam President. To add on to that, I was there Friday evening, and spectacular performance by the Bob Seger impersonator wowed the crowd. I know the Wonders were very good. Earlier in the day, we had a number of food trucks, and the carnival was going, and just fun for all ages. But I did want to shout out to the Parks and Recreation Department, the Public Service Department, the Warren Police, CERT, and all of you did a fantastic job in making sure that it was a terrific weekend. I understand Mr. Mazzarelli, using his Polish pride, even held the weather off and made sure it was a spectacular weekend. So well done to one and all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional announcements? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, next item.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 11A. We've been requested to keep that on the table for a while. We'll notify everybody when we're going to put it back on. And the next item then is 11B, which is a public hearing, a part of Trembleton subdivision vacation, including Ruley Avenue, public right-of-way and public alley, vacating lots 171 to 174, including lots 263 to 266, lots 319 to 321, the 18-foot wide north-south public alley located 131.67 feet west of Linderman Avenue, and the north-south 50 feet wide Ruley Avenue public right-of-way, 32549 Ruley Avenue, Section 3, City of Warren, Han Ha Thuk, and Coast to Coast USA LLC, PEV 240003.
Motion, anyone?
No, public hearing.
Oh, sorry. City,
Can I
thank you.
just say one thing first?
Sure.
Just to, if there, you hear a siren, I know there's really bad weather all around us, we need to leave the auditorium because there's really high walls. So make an exit out these doors, and somebody will direct you from there. But we've been told to leave this room if we hear the siren go off. Thanks. Sorry to
Thank
interrupt.
you. Mr. Worth, can you summarize the item before I open the public hearing?
Thank you, Madam Chair and City Council. And, okay, what did you want me to do is just
Summarize the matter.
summarize the matter? The petitioner has been working on this for several years and finally came to the conclusion that they had to, in order to make an area for, I believe it's 8 or 9 separate lots. And these are single-family homes, not apartments, as you heard a little while ago. And in order to do that in a subdivision, they're all smaller lots, you needed, they in the end needed to vacate a part of the subdivision. And the subdivision includes roadways, alleys, easements within the alleys. And that's indeed what Mr. Eckert came to the Planning Commission with, that kind of proposal. Planning Commission reviewed it, of course, and agreed with it, and it's moved on to here. So it's an area that's defined, and the resolution does define it. In the very first part, if you have the resolution in front of you, it defines it perfectly. One other thing I will say is that part of the condition, one particular condition, and that's condition number 5, And when you're reading it, there's some correction needs to be made where you can see in the first line the words the public utility easement. That's in the first sentence. In the second sentence, same words repeated, the public utility easements. Well, that needs to be replaced in both locations with what you actually see in the first part of the resolution. And I'll read that. It's where it starts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down, and I'll read it to replace those words. Lots 171 through 174, including lots 263 through 266, and lots 319 through 321 of Trembleton subdivision, and the 18-foot wide north-south public alley located 131.67 feet west of Linderman Ave, and the north-south 50-foot wide Ruley Avenue public right-of-way. So that's the change that should be made, and the resolution then will be corrected. I don't know if you have any other things you'd like to hear. Certainly, Mr. Eckert has a lot of good things to talk about there too.
So I will likely have you come back up once we have a motion after we open the public hearing.
All right.
Thank you. I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak on this matter?
My name is Glenn Eckert, 27241 Dowland Street, Warren, Michigan. I've been working on this for 4 years. I've gone through 2 mayors and a few council changes. The reason I'm here is to basically ask for a signature. In order to accomplish the end goal, which is to develop 9 houses on this property, I've gone through a lot of changes, and what has transpired here is that there is a quirk in the subdivision laws in the state of Michigan. And that quirk is that if it is a subdivision and it's in a floodplain area, you cannot bring you have to bring soil into the area in order to raise the grade of the house to bring it above the floodplain calculation, which is 609.1. It's currently a subdivision. My first thought was to just replat it as a subdivision. But when I got involved with the people that are in charge, I don't know if you have a copy of this. They told me you would have one. It's called the explanation of the requirement. Does this look familiar to anyone?
You can give a copy to Ms. Camp if you would like.
I've got plenty of copies. Okay. First, I talked to Mr. Nicholas Cleaver, and he is Land Survey Specialist, Office of Land Survey and Renomination, Department of Licensing and Regulation in Lansing. And he indicated to me that I could not have a subdivision unless I couldn't have the houses built on a subdivision unless I brought the grade up above. That would require bringing soil onto the site. And after I talked with him, I got involved with Eagle. And Mario Fusco is the local representative there. He's a supervisor of hydrologic studies and floodplain management unit, Water Resources Division, Eagle, and he's right here in Warren. And what he explained to me is that if it is a condominium development, a site condo development, the houses can be built on crawl spaces. By building the houses on crawl spaces, I could bring the floor area above the 609.1 level, and therefore alleviate any flood conditions for the homeowners. This also would require the addition of, in the crawl space, what they call floodgates. In case there was a major rain or flood, it would move through the house, through the crawl space, and not enter the home itself. How this actually happened, I don't know, because a site condo development, site condo, single family, is basically exactly the same as a subdivision development. I've developed 5 subdivisions in my life. The first 3 were subdivisions. The balance of them were site condo developments. And the site condo is actually easier to do, but in order to do a site condo development, I have to remove the plat. And in order to remove the plat, I have to take it to circuit court. And a judge has to declare that the plat has been vacated. After that plat is vacated, then I can take that information, that vacated plat, and turn that property into a site condo. And once it's turned into a site condo, can move forward with development finally. And I'm lucky enough to have a young lady here representing Coast to Coast. Her name is Quinn Pond. But I also have a number, I don't know if we have them or not. I was told that we had some overheads.
So this is audience right now. We'll have questions since you're the petitioner.
Okay.
Once we close the public hearing, I'm sure we'll have questions
All right.
Additionally about the matter.
Okay, so basically that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the authorization to sign the document so the attorney can move forward, because this property is owned by the city. And unless the city official signs the request to the attorney, and the work on this is going to be paid for not by the city but by the developer, so there's no additional cost involved to the city, but without that signature I cannot move forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else from the audience who would like to speak on this matter?
Number one, I think that the public should have the right to the public hearing before the petitioner comes up to defend and describe all the wonderful things he's going to do. And I don't live in that neighborhood, but I've been going to planning commission meetings, not recently, but for a long time. And I've watched what's happened, and the planning commission has been a rubber stamp for anything coming out of that planning office. So whether or not these residents have ever had any good feedback or any information that's helpful to them, I don't really think it's probably happened. I'd love to hear from them if that has. But if you just go ahead and approve this and just give a signature, that's all you have to do. You are also saying the residents don't really matter. He may have been working on it for 4 years, but those residents have lived there for a long time. And the same concerns were brought up at a planning commission meeting that I happened to be at, that this gentleman and the woman gentleman presented. They wouldn't have those same concerns if it had been addressed in any way. So I think it's a lack in the planning department, and I think at the very least it should be tabled until the proper evaluation of the situation is done and proper information is given. How do we know that's not going to end up like the condos off Imperial Drive? We don't know. They don't know. But if you're taking that and you've got already a parking issue, do you have a problem getting emergency vehicles in there? So I would just encourage you not to just rubber stamp things, because that's not what we need to do in the city. We need to take care of our residents. And we need to at least listen and answer their questions and help them understand if there's something they don't understand. But don't rubber stamp it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else from the audience that would like to speak on the matter? Can you give us your name?
Tom Beal.
Thank you.
As far as I know, they don't have a finalized plan yet. He's still saying 9 houses. I heard that they were in talks with the restaurant to use the 9th lot for a parking lot, but he's still going 9 houses. So is there a final plan?
We will ask when we close the public hearing, because I don't know, but we can
Okay.
ask the planning department.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience that wants to speak? Okay, I will close the public hearing and turn it over to council for action.
Motion to approve with discussion.
Support, Mr. Boyke. Discussion, Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Worth, please. Start with you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. And in looking through my notes, I remember this property, we dealt with this at our January 9th meeting to approve the original alley vacation and the purchase agreement and sale of these tax reverted properties. There were 11 of them. And so, and council, you might recall, I had filed a reconsideration after I realized that there was an error in our resolution. We brought this back, we corrected it, there was some consideration with the green space, and that had been eliminated. So this is the same property that we're now, this is more of what I would term an administrative function for, maybe you could term it a little better for me, sir. The signature that we're being asked for tonight is signing off on the legal doctrine.
I believe we're talking about the agreement
Yes.
that Mr. Eckert has referred to. And yeah, that needs to be done so that, and this be approved so they can move forward with a condominium subdivision, not the plat that he initially came forward with. And that plat will be retired, that will be taken back, and then once this property is a whole property that they can create the subdivision, the condominium subdivision according to the zoning ordinance, it will simply move forward with,
all right.
To build those. These lots all face, I believe it's Trembleton, and they'll use the utilities that exist in the road there. And so it's always been simple in that regard, to use those utilities and remove the other utilities that were part of the original plat, and those usually fell in the roadways, the alleys, roadways and alleys, basically. And within alleys, you have public utility easements. Same with the right-of-ways. You have public utility easements. So you remove them, you relocate anything that's there at this point, and open it up to making those lots.
All right. Now, as I re-look at the property, we had 11 lots that we authorized the purchase agreement for, and it did not affect the green space on the side that was taken out, and adjacent to Bates Park and the city-owned property along Beaver Creek.
Right.
So the site plan, has a site plan been submitted for this?
No.
Okay, so we don't have a
No.
formal site plan yet. Now, I remember at the previous meeting 8 months ago.
I have seen proposal, but one must do this first before you have
Understood.
the right. You have the right to use the property the way they want it to be used.
Of course. And what I don't want to do is mix the two. I know that we have a couple of residents here that have some concerns about traffic, parking, but I think we might be premature on what's being requested based on what is going to be built on the property. Because at this point, if we've sold 11 lots, if they're zoned R1, R1P, then you're building up to 11 homes, which is not, in my opinion, not a tremendous stress on the existing roadway or the neighborhood.
Well, remember that those lots were part of the original lots in Trumbullton subdivision. So we're removing those and he's reducing it to 9.
Understood. So we're dealing with an even smaller parcel base.
Smaller density, yeah, actually.
And so with the potential, so, and I don't know if Mr. Eckert would like to speak to his, potential plan. I'm hearing condominiums or homes. Perhaps Mr. Eckert, if you'd like to comment on what your potential plan is for the development of this space.
I'd be happy to. This existing subdivision was actually subdivided in the mid-30s, okay? And the configuration of these lots were running north and south. The roads were running north and south. And it was financially impossible to develop those lots because of the cost of putting the infrastructure in for a roadway, the sewers, the water, all the connections. So by reducing the amount of lots and fronting the lots on Trembleton, as opposed to fronting them on Ruley or Linderman, it allowed the development to go forward. And that was going along rather nicely until I ran into the problem with the difference between a subdivision and a condominium. The concept of developing these lots is valid. It's a good idea. It was a good idea 4 years ago, and it's a good idea today. Originally, the city had agreed to sell me the property from Trembleton all the way to Beaver Creek. And that amount of property from Trembleton to Beaver Creek runs between 300 and 500 feet deep. And Mr. Worth, we talked about it, and he says, maybe we should keep that property back there for a park someday. And I think I've got some pictures of that somewhere, if it's available. But I thought that was a good idea too, because nobody wants a 50-foot wide lot that runs 500 feet deep. Who wants to cut the grass? So it was a win-win situation for the city and for the development. I've gone through a few different developers that were willing to come forward on this, but the time factors that were involved because of COVID and the situations that I was running into, they kept walking away until I found this group that I'm working with now, and I really don't want to lose them. And basically all I'm asking for is the authorization to take this, petition the court, circuit court, to look at this and say, okay, we will remove this plat that was designed in 1934. This plat is so old that they platted lots over Beaver Creek. Think about it. They would do anything, then they didn't care. So it's a great idea. It's a good concept. I'm not trying to hurt any of the residents. We are in communication with the owner of the Mexican restaurant. We're trying to come up with the developer would rather keep that residential lot, but in order to satisfy the residents' needs, they are willing to let enough space go so they could put in enough parking to satisfy that requirement, for the restaurant. And it's good for his business. It's something that he should do. So we are talking with him. He's talking with us. They haven't come to an agreement yet, but that's part of the plan. And as far as there being a site plan, there is, okay? And you've probably got it, Mitt, but we can't get it on the screen. And it's been around for quite a while. It's been around for 3.5 years. It's just that now that I'm changing it from a subdivision to a site condo development, a single-family site condo. They're lots.
And Mr. Eckert, approximately how many of these site condo developments are you planning on building?
Individual homes, it'll probably be 8, because if we work the deal out with the, and it's not up to me to do that. It's about these 2 individuals. They've got to sit down and work it out, and it's a win-win for, the development. But, there would be 8 instead of 9.
Thank you.
And there's originally planned, like I said, for 11, so it's reduced.
And you did agree, as part of the purchase agreement, to some strict conditions that we modified here back in January.
Yeah.
So those are still in place. Taking this additional step does not change the intent or the conditions that we agreed in January, or the amendment in early February.
Correct.
So that stays on. I would recommend to both you and Mr. Worth, if you could please communicate with the neighbors when you do bring your site plan in front of the Planning Commission. I know that requirements are in place for notice, but go the extra step to communicate and make sure that the concerns relative to parking, traffic patterns are allayed with them. And then, but I don't want to mix those concerns with site plan and conditions of a site plan relative to this item, which has they're
I will have to
exclusive.
return. This has to come back to you.
Understood. But what I'm trying to do is...
Once I get the court to agree to remove the plat, then I can bring a drawing forward that can be reviewed and adjusted if necessary.
And that will be reviewed by the Planning Commission.
Yeah, and
So-
you'll get it too.
So, but my point here is that the concerns of the neighborhood need to be addressed during the site planning process, not during this particular item, which is more of a technicality.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything further, Mr.
Through the
Leck?
chair.
I yield.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Dwyer and then Mr. Boyke. Mr. Dwyer.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. Who will be paying for the relocation of the utilities?
That actually isn't correct. The utilities will remain where they are. I've already been in contact with DTE, and I've made adjustments on easements, okay? AT&T, DTE, originally on that plat, or the original plat that we're talking about removing, there was an alleyway running through that north and south. And there was a series of DTE poles in that alleyway. And what I did is I adjusted that alleyway over to the west because those poles were right on the edge of the alleyway. So I moved the alleyway into the middle of a 16-foot easement so that those poles could be surfaced. And that space on either side, 8 foot on either side, can be used as a side yard setback. Later, I found out that there was a AT&T underground cable line, okay, fiber optics, that ran same direction, north and south. And that ran along the street that was never put in, Ruley. So I talked to the AT&T people, and we've come to an agreement that they want a 12-foot wide easement coming from Trembleton down Lot 4, and when it gets to the back of Lot 4, behind where the house would be sitting, it's basically called the footprint, it would widen out to 16 feet and then go to the back of the property so that it wouldn't interfere with the AT&T fiber optics cable line that's underground. All the rest of the utilities, the water, the sewer, they will be connected to, but they won't be moved.
Okay. And one other question, we're talking 50-foot wide lots. Wasn't it originally the plan 60-foot wide lots?
No. Originally, we were trying to put larger lots in there, but we couldn't make it work. And they're a combination. between 45 and 56-foot lots. They vary because of these easement changes. But to really understand what it's going to look like, you'd have to see the photos that we produced prior to this, because they've got a development, high-tech development, unbelievable housing going in that the city will be proud of.
Anything further, Mr. Dwyer? Thank
No.
you. Mr. Boyke.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My questions have to deal with the paperwork you supplied to us. Will this property have to be brought up, filled or brought up to raise it above the floodplain level?
No, that's why I'm doing this.
Okay.
If it was a subdivision, okay, I'd have to bring in fill to raise the grade, the floor grade of these houses up over that 609.1. And that's the only way a subdivision will allow you to build. But if it's a site condo, you can put the houses on crawl spaces. I can bring the floors up to that grade without touching the soil beneath.
My concern is if your development is higher grade than the surrounding residents, what would be the effect of rainwater, and where is it going to go?
The best way to explain this to you is Mr. Fuco, okay, at Eagle. We went over this in detail. I have a permit request with his office now. And the reason I'm doing it the way I'm doing it is that so that no fill has to be brought into the site, because the amount of fill that is actually authorized to bring in is very minimal, okay? Always have to do some land balancing. But the grade is not going to change.
Like I said,
we're not going to, we can't bring in.
My main concern is that we authorize the development, and then we find out that the grade's not right, and we're flooding out the residents around you, you know. So that'll be a question for the planning commission to probably handle, but I'm very concerned about that.
I understand.
Especially after reading what you gave me.
Yeah,
You know.
and those phone numbers are on there. You can talk to, they're both very familiar with this site.
Thank you. Yield back.
Any additional discussion? So just to summarize for the residents that had some questions, one is there was a purchase agreement of those 11 properties back in January, Mr. Lafferty can correct me, with some conditions in purchasing that property from the city. What we're approving today is the ability, or what we're going to vote on, is the ability for Mr. Eckert, and you can have a seat, Mr. Eckert, Mr. Eckert to go to circuit court to have the legal definition of those properties changed from a subdivision to a condo site. There will be additional work done from there that will go through the planning commission, maybe to us, that will develop the full site on what is permitted on the site, what is not permitted on the site. While Mr. Eckert has an idea of what he would like to have there, it does have to go through another phase of approvals before that's possible. So sounds like there is a final plan. The gentleman that came up, I would ask Mr. Worth if you could maybe grab this gentleman's contact information to send him the final plan so that he can see what that looks like, and anyone else who would like Mr. Worth is the person to look at what has been proposed thus far. Okay. Any additional discussion? No? Okay. Hearing none, I will call the question. Mr. Lafferty?
So point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I want to recognize the fact that Mr. Worth read into the record the amended text for the resolution for Mary to put into the official record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes to approve.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Let's see. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogan C. is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is 12A, appointment of 2 members to be on the Town Center Steering Committee. So moved with discussion.
Support Lafferty.
Madam Chair?
Discussion, Ms. Moore.
So we received an email on August 22nd from Mr. Bomarito. First off, It says attached is the mayor's authorization to begin a steering committee for the town center. Number one, the DDA is an autonomous board that doesn't report to the mayor. Tom Bomarito doesn't report to the mayor except if he's the economic director, but not as the DDA director. He is by ordinance and bylaws the CEO of the DDA. So he really doesn't, I suppose he has to get, if he wanted people outside of the DDA on the steering committee, would have to get the mayor's permission for her people to join there. But Tom has Mr. Bomarito has the authority to set up a steering committee and invite members to be on it. That came on the 22nd of August. At that time, Mr. Bomarito said that his intent was to have our first community involvement as a council committee of the whole, and then move to other engagements in the community. We was going to be sending a letter to have 2 council members appointed. That didn't come. Late today, I received an email that that hadn't gotten mailed. But the invitation, the first meeting is September 4th, so that's why I'm adding this at the last minute. I suppose if anybody wants to go to that meeting, if they're available on the 4th. I think I'm available. I could certainly do it. I'm probably the only one here that was here actually and knows the intent of the DDA from the beginning and what the plan is supposed to be. So that might be a different perspective, but we really have to sort of reteach the whole DDA to get back to what it was supposed to be and what it should be today, according to the ordinance and the bylaws. But that's, I think, a discussion to come in the near future. So I guess if anybody else wants to be part of that, I would like to be part of it. I don't know if anybody else does.
Nominate Ms. Moore.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I volunteer.
I will nominate Ms. Moore, and Mr. Lafferty nominated himself. Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is going to be a long process, so I don't think there's, Mr. Lafferty and I can go maybe now to start thinking, but I think we could probably rotate people. This is a very, very, very big undertaking. It'll have a big impact on our community, so I don't think it should be land in just 2 people. Okay, we could do that.
I think that's
Yeah.
great.
Nominate alternatives at this point?
I'll
Okay,
Mel and I
okay.
be alternates. Okay, so the slate of folks for the steering committee includes Ms. Moore and Mr. Lafferty, and then Ms. McGee and myself for alternates. And certainly we can swap people out.
And we're going to have committee meetings as a whole, and I think all kinds of things, so, yeah.
I need a motion, I suppose, for this item.
Motion to approve the members and alternates as discussed.
Support Lafferty.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item.
Next item is 13A, Legal Affairs Subcommittee Discussion in Re Approval of Warren Land Bank Authority Intergovernmental Agreement. Motion to approve with discussion.
Support Lafferty.
Discussion, Ms. Moore.
Madam Chair, if I could just have Mr. Schroeder, do you want to give the background? I can read your memo, but
Certainly.
otherwise you could just.
The background to this is earlier this year in February, a new state law took effect that would allow the city of Warren to have a land bank. That wasn't possible before. Another piece of this was the county of Macomb, the Macomb County Commissioners rejected having a county land bank at that time. So that created the opportunity for Warren. In fact, the law allowed 10 or 11 new communities in the state of Michigan to have their own land bank. But this would be done through an intergovernmental agreement with the State Land Bank Authority. So the council voted unanimously to do that, had a series of discussions with the State Land Bank Authority, the director, Mr. Rivet, who grew up in Warren. So the head of the State Land Bank Authority has a real interest in Warren getting a land bank as he grew up here, was involved in, I believe, local government for a period of time. I worked with the land bank director and the general counsel, the attorney for the State Land Bank, to put together what's called an intergovernmental agreement. So this is an agreement between Warren and the State Land Bank Authority to establish a City of Warren land bank and to exercise all powers and authorities that a land bank can do. In addition, the State Land Bank Authority is giving out a lot of grants. I think this year it was over $70 million worth of grants. This is to help cities, they're calling them like blight buster grants or blight elimination grants. So when communities have properties in their land bank and they receive these grants, they can improve these properties. And ultimately the goal isn't to keep the property in the land bank, the goal is to improve the properties and then sell them to bidders or others who can use them, end users in residential properties. So, and I know that there are potential grants available if we get this done by the end of the year. It's getting close, so we want to complete this. So what you see is a result of a sort of a template agreement from the State Land Bank Authority. We had discussions with Legal Affairs and other council members, and if we approve this and this moves forward, then the city would qualify for private, local, state, and federal funds. The city may need to discuss some startup costs to get going. I know Ms. Moore has had some conversations on that end, so I can answer any questions, but I think given that council wanted to do this in the first place, we have a great agreement with the state. This wasn't even possible a year ago. This wasn't even possible at last November's election. It was only possible early in the spring this year, so we're jumping on it, and certainly I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Just to mention that sort of goes along with our thinking, as you'll remember back at budget time, we did allocate about $5 million from the ARPA funds to invest in the South End by improving properties, be based on income and other things like that. And this will be a really good tie-in to that effort, and other things I think we'll probably be talking about that we can do, all in an effort to raise the South End, the homes there, to encourage home ownership, decrease the rental properties, and I think that will be just a win-win for the city. And I will tell you that when other people have found out we're doing a land bank, they're very jealous. I can tell you Mark Hackle's very jealous because he thinks they really missed the mark by not doing it in the county, but their loss is our win, really, because if they had not turned it down, we would not be able to do it. So, and thank you for Mr. Schroeder for all the work you've done. But now if anybody else has anybody else, be quiet.
Any additional discussion? I just wanted to note that I think this is an incredible opportunity. I'm really excited about it. I think for far too long, door knocking, you would hear residents complain about a vacant piece of property in their neighborhood or wanting to start a community garden or just not an understanding of how to purchase property in the city. And I think we have had a history of folks not being super transparent with some of that. We've had folks act unethically around some of the tax reverted or foreclosed properties, and I think this is a great step forward to providing additional transparency and bringing it into a local body to help ensure that these properties can be used and best used based on the folks closest to the ground. So I'm very excited about this and commend my colleagues across the board for the insight in moving this forward. So, without anything further, I will call the question. Let's see, Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty.
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Mr. Boyke.
Yes.
Mr. Noonan.
Yes.
Ms. McGee.
Very much yes.
Rogan C is a yes, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is 13B, Council Secretary Mindy Moore, discussion in Ray officials performing duties in acting capacity. So moved.
Support Lafferty.
Madam Chair.
Discussion.
Thank you. We find ourselves with many positions not filled in the city to begin with. We received some documentation at a committee meeting of the whole on the 20th, I believe, of August, and there are approximately 99 positions that are not filled. Now, some are in the process of being filled, and they're not just totally vacant and nothing's being done with them. But that does, cause some concern on certainly most of our parts that we need to get those positions filled. The other thing that's come up is this thing of acting. I don't believe, maybe Mr. Schroeder, I think, probably should address this. But there is no acting, except in the city attorney's office. The chief assistant attorney, according to the UAW contract, may be the acting city attorney for up to 4 weeks. That is the 4 weeks. That is the only place for an acting anything. And there is either union positions or there are appointed positions. And there is, Mr. Schroeder will explain provisional, I believe he knows it better than I, but I'm concerned that we have these positions that aren't filled. I'm especially concerned about HR, that there's a term acting, and that person is supposed to be charged with finding their replacement. That's concerning to me. I think that somebody outside of the acting HR director should be looking for an HR director. The recruiting. And the city attorney, I think, is a huge problem, not having a permanent city attorney. Because as you all know, from hearing me talk for blah, 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 according to the charter, the city attorney reports to us, right? So that we have a different relationship with a city attorney than we would somebody in the attorney's office. And that we deserve that, so that we know that that person is going to be working in our best interest and answer to us. We got a document last week that we had asked questions and sent over for the Pride event to get answers, and it came from the attorney, from Ms. Michaels. Didn't come from the administration, and so that caused me a little concern, because these were things council wanted, and Ms. Michaels was answering on behalf of the administration. So we're getting into these really, really gray areas that I find concerning. Maybe Mr. Schroeder can explain the law.
There is no provision in the charter, the city charter, for acting or interim appointments. There's something known as a provisional appointment, and a provisional appointment assumes that the person was already in the position and can continue provisionally until a replacement is found. That requires council approval. The whole concept of acting, it's been used over the years when there's sort of a short vacancy in a department head position. So as we know in the charter, the mayor appoints most of the, or almost all of the administrative officers of the city. That's 7.6 of the charter. When the mayor makes such an appointment, either it needs to be confirmed by the council, that's a limited number, the assessor, the attorney, some appointments to boards and commissions, or the mayor makes a formal appointment, files it with the clerk, the council's notified, and the council has 2 meetings to reject that appointment for giving a reason. The whole acting department head or administrative officer designation over the years has been turned into something where people for months and longer years hold this position in an acting capacity without having been appointed. My suggestion is that's not contemplated under the charter, it's not permitted under the charter. In the case of the city attorney, there's a union agreement, a collective bargaining agreement between the city and the union that says in the absence of a city attorney for periods of time less than 4 weeks, the chief assistant city attorney shall be the administrative head of the Department of Law. Now, I'm not aware of this being in other departments, maybe it is, but in this case there's a time limit on that. So really, if we want to follow our charter and our ordinances and our, in this case, a union contract, we need to read the words and interpret them correctly and proceed correctly. And so acting isn't something that really exists. In the past, the council really wasn't going to make an issue out of someone who's acting for a month or 2 if the mayor's trying to find a replacement. But you get into 6, 7, 8 months, almost a year, there's really no authority. So it's certainly the mayor could call someone acting and file the appointment with the clerk and send it over to the council. That would be fine, as long as that process is being followed. But just to name someone acting without following the process of filing it and sending it to council, there's just no authority for it. Well, if the mayor wants to call them acting.
They could call her, they could call her,
But file the appointment properly.
It would be an appointment to the position in our eyes, but if the mayor wanted to say, you're appointed, but you're not going to be there for very long.
Right. Well, sometimes an acting a person is under consideration for the.
Right, but there's no,
Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't be getting documentation that says acting city attorney like we did today.
Well, not after 4 weeks.
Right. That's my point.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't know how much longer we can go without having a city attorney. It's just not, certainly not fair to us. And if we hadn't been in a position where we have a council attorney, I have no idea what we would be doing. We would have no clue. So I just think that, we're going to have to do something about that. And we'll figure out something, but something's got to be done. We can't carry on like this. It's not fair to the residents, not fair to us, certainly.
Any additional discussion?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
My concern is that it is taking longer to fill positions, not just in the city of Warren, but all over. So if it's past that 4-week deadline time, then what would you call it? If it's not acting, it's not, what is it? Because it's taking longer to fill the positions nowadays, up to 6 months.
Well, like I said before, I think you were directing that my way.
I was.
Certainly, the appointments can be made as acting. Just file the appointment with the clerk, send it to council, call them acting. The charter doesn't say acting, so you can circumvent the whole charter by just naming certain individuals acting, and they're there for the longest time, and the process isn't followed. So my suggestion is file the appointments, say that they're acting, send them over to council, let council look at it, and after let the process take place that way. Because it doesn't say, there's nothing in the charter that says interim or acting. Now, another possibility is, since it's not addressed, and certainly if it's silent in the charter, there's no acting, maybe there's an ordinance. Council can look at an ordinance and under what conditions can someone be an interim or acting? Under what conditions? It's just, the charter has a specific power to make these appointments, and interim and acting wasn't contemplated in 1957. So, but to sit there and not appoint folks that have been sitting in these positions for a long time, the charter doesn't provide for that.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Moore?
Just to follow up, Ms. McGee, hiring permanent staff and civil service employees is certainly different than making an appointment. The mayor can appoint, say she appoints a fabulous police commissioner, and 3 months later, she can just fire that person and bring somebody else in. So it's not the same as, somebody that has civil service protection. She can appoint anybody in this auditorium to any position she wants. She really doesn't have to have, they don't have any qualifications. There's not one appointment that has a qualification to it except an assessor and a city attorney. But she could pick anybody off the street and appoint them if she wanted to. So, and it doesn't have to last forever. It's not an appointment forever. I mean, nothing's going to be more than now 3 years and 3 months, right? Or 3 years and 2 months. So it's not like it's a 25-year appointment for somebody's career like you would an employee. And I know it takes longer to fill employment positions. I know that. But appointees should not take that long. It just shouldn't, because you don't have to go through any of the hoops that you do have to with a civil service employee. So I just don't see it. Whatever.
Madam President,
Mr. Lafferty?
if Ms. McGee is finished.
I am done.
All right. We shouldn't be having this conversation on the 27th of August. I don't know any way to put it that makes it sound better. We shouldn't have had this conversation 3 months ago, like we did, and a few weeks after the new mayor took office. That should have been the time, given the honeymoon, the grace period of a newly elected executive to assemble. But you are supposed to walk into that office having been elected to the highest office in Warren with a plan, with an army of appointees ready and willing to serve. There is no excuse to walk in and not have that plan ready. It's a disservice to the residents, it's a disservice to this council, and then on top of it, what did we go through for the last 4 years with the previous administration, asking, sending letters, filing motions in court, begging circuit court judges to have the administration and the former mayor to follow the charter. And I think this council has been more than gracious, because we absolutely could, we are within our right to file that in circuit court that she is not following the charter and to compel her to do so in accordance with her oath. But we haven't done that. We reserve that right. So perhaps that's a good enough reminder. But at the very least, there should be, without delay, every single appointee that has not been sent over to council. I don't care if it's provisional. Send it over. If I'm getting a letter that says somebody is the acting so-and-so, I want a letter of appointment saying this person is going to be the acting so-and-so until I find someone else. I can accept that. We can recognize that officially and vote on that. It's not acceptable to be in this situation at this point in time. There is no excuse for it. And I hope the mayor is listening and writing letters right now, because I certainly don't want to have this conversation in 2 weeks. Perhaps we'll have a list of appointments by that time, provisional and otherwise, and we can finally put this issue to bed. Thank you.
Any additional discussion?
Madam Chair.
Okay, good.
Mr. Boyke.
Just to follow up a little bit, during the budget hearings, we had the mayor and administration there, and there were questions of how many people apply for a position. We didn't get an answer. And, you know, they could say what they want to say. We don't have enough applicants. We don't know that. She won't give us nothing. So, you know, until we get answers, you know, it's just totally unfair to the, you know, for the community to suffer this way. Thank you.
Ms. Moore?
Yes, thank you. And just to sort of follow up, we did receive sort of a letter from a memorandum today at noon, the morning of our council meeting, notifying us of the appointment of Police Captain James Wolf and Paul Hodes, Police Captain. You know, we only have 2 meetings to address this. So this was too short notice for us to put on the agenda. So they've cut our window of time to make a decision now down to only 1 council meeting. I don't appreciate that, but, you know, I suppose it's within the charter. But to put it to last meeting and really cut our time down to do our work, I think is a little disingenuous. But nonetheless, we did get those appointments over, and those are reappointments. Both Captain Wolf and Captain Hodes are currently captains. But we did get those appointments that were sent over. So they were appointed in the prior administration. So they were appointed August 27th. So that's what, almost 9 months, just to reappoint people that were already in there. So anyway, 9 months.
Any additional discussion? I will suppose motion to receive and file is in order.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is Council Secretary Mindy Moore, discussion and rate update on policies and recruitment of police officer hiring. Madam Chair, motion to approve.
Support Dwyer.
Ms. Moore.
Yeah. We've had conversations. We did have a committee meeting of the whole discussing police hiring. You know, if we have 3 candidates today, we're going to lose 3 next week that are retiring. So it's kind of a vicious circle. I think I don't know, Mr. Schroeder has something to add to this.
At the previous meeting, the council asked us to look into an ordinance on sort of who does the recruitment process for the the police department and whether that could be directed by ordinance. Been doing research on this since the last meeting. I know that there's a thought process that, you know, maybe this is governed by union contract or other things that might supersede the ordinance. I think there's a potential way to thread the needle and have an ordinance that essentially shows where the police officer hiring takes place. If you look in the ordinance, now this is very interesting, you know, we have a human resources department, but you look in our ordinances, it says the Department of Personnel Management. And for whatever reason, for over 10 years, the ordinance has never been updated to properly reflect the name of the department. But when you look at the Department of Personnel Management, it talks about the duties of that department and what they do. And this was an ordinance passed by City Council saying, here's what your duties are. That's consistent with the charter. The council can pass ordinances creating departments and explaining what those duties are. So I'm not convinced that council cannot amend that ordinance and talk about the police recruitment and hiring process being in the police department. I know the city's labor attorneys are concerned about that. We're in discussions. We certainly don't want to pass an ordinance that's not going to be enforceable. But at the same time, this ordinance needs to be updated, not just to address this police hiring issue, but it's not even the proper name in our code of ordinances. So I think that that's one of those checkbox items we need to look at.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Moore.
And I believe there are a lot of things that we need to do. Ms. McGee is well more familiar with all of this than I am, but we need to have a better way of applying for jobs. We should be able to apply for jobs online. We should be targeting, you know, the social media aspect of our lives now instead of the Detroit News and the Free Press that, quite frankly, people don't read very often. Certainly not looking for jobs through the want ads for a long time. So I think there's a lot of improvements we need to do within the total hiring process. It just so happens that, you know, it seems to us at times that the police hiring is sort of at a crisis situation sometimes because it's moving so fast and people are retiring, and so I think that's something we're going to talk about down the line. And Mr. Schroeder will continue to do some work, and I think we're going to, we're going to start probably pretty soon negotiating contracts. So, and we're going to have a committee meeting, a closed session probably in the next few weeks to talk about some of that. I'll let everybody know when that is.
Any additional discussion?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yeah, I definitely think we should do a better job in the recruitment process, social media, newspaper, Oakland Press, Macomb Daily, whatever it takes. Maybe even reaching out to the local academies, School of Craft, Oakland, Macomb, and getting the word out that we're looking for officers. We're actively seeking out officers, and I think that's a good way to get the word out, and even maybe getting to some job fairs and getting officers there to try to promote our department and get hires that way. So I think those are some other avenues that we should really consider. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you. One last point I'd like to add is a comparison of the hiring practices of neighboring cities. I have heard more often than not that Warren seems to be lagging far behind. Our process is several weeks longer than that of neighboring municipalities, and by the time these candidates, they're applying to not just Warren, they're applying to 3 or 4 or 5 other municipalities and have an offer in hand and probably a job in hand by the time Warren responds. And so I'd like to make the suggestion that, we compare what do other cities do, how have they streamlined their process, and model after them. I don't know which city does it the best. I'll leave that to the police department to advise us. But that certainly would seem, if we're going to be competitive, we need to be competitive from day one. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? I also think a motion to receive and file is in order. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is consideration and adoption of a resolution approving the registration of the City of Warren Recycling Center with the State of Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy for a 5-year period in the amount of $750. So moved.
Support.
Discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogan C is yes. Motion carries. Next item.
14B, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving the recommendation from the RFP panel to award the receiving and recycling of the City of Warren recyclables to Waste Management of Michigan, Inc. in an estimated annual cost of $416,220 at the beginning of the contract. So moved with discussion.
Support Lafferty.
Motion made by Ms. Moore, support by Mr. Boyke. Discussion, Ms. Moore.
Thank you. You know, things have changed over the years. When we started doing recycling years ago, we were making money, or we were being paid by the recyclers to take our recyclables. Well, now we have to pay them to take it. This was the only bid we received, but we're still going to be saving money from what we were being paid previously. So this is a good deal, and I think they're also going to build a new recycling center, Great Lakes. So I think we're in good shape. Thank you.
Any additional discussion?
Madam President?
Mr. Lafferty.
Just a clarification. I was looking at Exhibit A through the chair to Ms. Michaels, please. And Ms. Michaels, your letter to us indicated that the city, after year 4 and prior to the approval of the new term, the city and Waste Management will work together to determine if the hourly rates per ton need to be modified. Is that a misprint? Was it just the rate per ton? Or are we talking about an hourly rate calculation for number of hours worked in addition to the price per ton?
The rate per ton, it's my understanding. I believe there's a composition where we receive a credit. And Craig is the expert at this. But if I could explain it properly, we get a credit.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the tonnage rate is a factor. So it would be recalculated and go down. It would serve to our benefit if it's recalculated.
All right,
Hopefully.
so we're only talking about redetermining the rate per ton, not necessarily an hourly rate per ton. You might have
No,
just...
rate per ton.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure the exhibit was consistent with your letter. So, and it's not in the exhibit. Hourly is not listed in the exhibit, so we're good there contractually.
Good.
I just wanted to make that clarification. And so this is a 4-year agreement with the standard renewals up to 10 years?
Up to 10, correct.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogan C is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is 14C, proposed ordinance amendment to the Commission on Disabilities Enabling Ordinance, Chapter 2, Section 2-265, first reading. So moved with discussion.
Support Lafferty.
Discussion, Ms. Moore.
Thank you. We received this amendment. There's some sort of clunky language in it that probably should be changed. It is hereby the commission shall consist of mayor-appointed members. There is no, that's not really the wording we use. We use the wording from the charter. So that needs to be reworded. Maybe Mr. Schroeder can do that before the next.
I think I can send a note to the city attorney's office that we do it the same way we did in the veterans ordinance that was just amended the last meeting, where it just simply says that they're appointed pursuant to 7.6A of the charter.
And I think it's a little odd to have all members shall have a demonstrated interest in fostering inclusion and removing barriers for people living with a disability. You know, I think that's a question you would ask somebody when they're applying to that commission, what their feelings are about certain things. I think that's a very odd thing to put somebody's feelings into an ordinance. And so I don't think we need that. I don't have a problem with the staggered 3, or whatever the term changes. It's kind of hard to tell from the way this is written, but I think we'll look at these a little more in between, but it's just a little clunky how it's worded, so maybe we can have the attorneys fix it up. That's all for me.
Any additional discussion?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Lafferty?
Through the chair to Ms. Moore, that sentence that you're referring to is really, it's the chartered purpose of the commission to foster
Right.
foster inclusion and disabilities and
Right.
the like. I agree, it has no place in this, but if somebody wants to be part of the commission, they're going to apply. Of course, they're going to demonstrate an interest. They wouldn't have applied otherwise. So
You would think.
it's obvious. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? I had the same note, so thank you for bringing it up.
I think everybody has.
Any-
We've got emails of it saying the same thing.
Hearing no additional discussion, I will call the question. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogan C is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is 14D, proposed ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 2.5 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Warren entitled Downtown Development, first reading. So moved with discussion.
Support Lafferty.
Discussion, Ms. Moore.
Thank you. Again, we have this, let me get back here. We have the change to remove the Warren Consolidated Schools portion of the ordinance, and I don't think there's anything else. Did you see anything else that we need to address, Mr. Schroeder?
No.
No, yeah, we'll look at it, between now and then, but I don't see any changes that it's, yeah, it's just taking that out of there. I think down the road, we're gonna be redoing the ordinance totally and the bylaws because they're not being followed, so we have to do something about that. All right.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lafferty?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Boyke?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Ms. McGee?
Yes.
Rogan C is a yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is audience participation for general topics.
Thank you. Members of the audience who would like to address City Council this evening may do so by filling out an audience form located over here on the right side of the stage. This is a reminder that per our council rules and procedures, you must write your name and address on the audience form or give your full name and address at the podium. You have 3 minutes, and the timer is up here. First up is Yvonne Polowada. Thank you.
My name's Yvonne Palawota, 27651 Campbell Road, Warren, Michigan. This ensuring and enforce the city ordinance on section 23/6, maintaining community park safety.
Can you speak into the microphone a little bit?
Oh,
It's harder
okay.
to hear you.
August 20th, 24, why this petition matters. Our cherished community parks in Warren, Michigan has been a beacon of closeness and camaraderie for many. Recently, however, has been compromised by those, choose to ignore clear and simple city rules, no motor vehicles in picnic area. There is a group of people riding mini bikes in the Veterans Park at 27400 Campbell Road. This blank disregard for city ordinance section 23/6 has not only disturbed the peace during late hours, but more importantly, is endangering the safety of those who frequent the park to walk, play, or exercise. This issue is not about inconvenience, it's about safety. A study of the National Safety Council revealed that non-traffic motor vehicles accidents resulted in approximately 92,000 injuries in recent years, the National Safety Council 2020, as these types of accidents continue to rise every stride towards this enforcement. This ordinance reflects on the community to safety of our fellow citizens, an attempt to restore our sense of safety and tranquility that we once took pride in. We must call upon the City of Warren to enforce Ordinance Section 23-6. Strictly, no cars or other motor vehicles shall be permitted in the park picnic area by simply using the designated parking lot, streets parked, where we can ensure we all continue to enjoy the park as well as it was intended to be. Let us take a stand for the safety of our youth and for the peace of our seniors, the tranquility of our community. I have 107 signatures. I'm making this petition on the accomplishment assigned to be installed in the Veterans Memorial Park at 24700 Campbell Road, Warren, Michigan. No mini bikes allowed. This way, there is no ignorance or excuse of park ordinance. Our community knows these juveniles by name.
You're at time.
Okay.
Thank you. Next is Michelle Nard.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michelle Nard. I'm the Macomb County Commissioner for District 12. First, I want to talk about the new project development that the gentleman was talking about. I've been here for over 20 years, and it's good to see that somebody's coming into the city and want to do developments. As county commissioner for the last 3.5 years, I come across a few developers that wanted to come in Warren, and they were discouraged because it was so much red tape that, and they couldn't get to the people they needed to get to, that they just went elsewhere with their projects. So it's good to see that somebody is still willing to come here in the third largest city and do some kind of development, because there's been none for the last 20 years. Number two, I want to speak about the gross disenfranchisement of voters on August the 6th. There were a couple of locations that were changed, and I didn't get a notification about it, and a lot of my residents didn't get a notification about it. This is the third largest city. There's no reason that we don't be proactive, because we know we live in Michigan, we know we have inclement weather, we know that things happen. So to move a polling location and not inform the citizens properly is a gross disenfranchisement and needs to be investigated. Also, one of the locations where the residents were taken to there was no parking spaces for disabled people. They were all filled by the workers that were working at the polls. So that was very disrespectful to the seniors, and I sat there for 2 hours to watch and see if maybe someone was in there voting, but that didn't happen. And I have photographs of it, so I know that happened. If anybody disagrees, I will produce that as well. Then number two, I hear you speaking about the mayor, and everybody, some of you up here championed for her and voted for her, and some of you sitting in the audience did the same thing. And she never once told you that she had a plan. She never once said that she had anything that she was going to do, and none of you ever asked. But you championed and you pushed and you asked the residents to vote this woman in, knowing that for the 14 years she was our state rep, she didn't do anything. So now we're sitting up here almost a year with nothing done. She never had a plan in the first place. And so instead of criticizing her and talking about her, why don't somebody help her? Why are you just sitting and watching her flap in the water and drown? Because the citizens are being affected by it. And you all swore that you were going to look out for the citizens first and not your political party, which is what's happening. If you're not the proper type of Democrat, which her office is nonpartisan, then you don't get anywhere in this city, which is wrong. And if somebody speaks out, you want to try to make them look like they're angry or crazy. But see, that's not going to work. You mess with the right one this time. And anybody in here knows who I'm talking about. You mess with the right one. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Next is Wesley Arnold.
I'm running as fast as I can. Good evening. My name is Professor Wesley Arnold, commonly known as the Old Historian. First, I want to thank you all for your service to our city and to our citizens. Thank you very much. I have no complaints, no gripes, nothing to bitch about, and I'm not in a hurry. How's that? Are you the right people to talk to? Okay, just a very, very, very short note. If you or any citizen would like to know about the history of Warren, for free, they can visit warrenhistory.info, warrenhistory.info, or on your little cards I passed out, wiseuseful.info, wiseuseful.info. It has over 2,000 pictures of Warren area history, plus the history of Warren. I recently just published a Facebook thing on the Warren's oldest cemetery on that Facebook site, which is also Wise Useful Info. So thank you very much. That's all I have. I just want to preserve our local history and also honor our veterans. That's it. It's warrenhistory.info. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jerry Bell.
Good evening. Good evening, Council. Who do we see over there? Don't we see a city attorney, Mary Michaels? She's our city attorney. She's been our city attorney. She's been doing a pretty good job. Mr. Schroeder is not our city attorney. Why is he even up there? What are we going to do? What's going to happen? You guys going to take the mayor to court? Sure you are. Well, some of you rallied around her to get her voted into office. Let's talk about turncoat again. Some of you rallied around her, and now you find yourselves complaining about what she has not done. But what didn't you do 2 to 3 months into your term? You should have been addressing this issue. But now maybe something went wrong and something didn't go you guys' way, and now you're all mad. Now, I may have my differences with the mayor, and trust me, they're very little differences. But what I see right now is a mayor that could use the help. If she's not producing right now, she needs the help. So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Send your tag dog Schroeder after her and put her in court instead of working this out? Mindy, you like to talk. Come on, answer the question. Or perhaps you, Ms. Rogancy, answer the question. You guys talk a lot. Constantly attack former Mayor Fouts. Now you're attacking our current mayor. What is it gonna be? You guys wanna be mayors? Mindy, you wanna be the mayor? I don't think so. You're not mayor quality. So let's try to help this mayor. Let's place some calls. I don't care if it's the council, I don't care if it's you all in the audience. Let's place some calls to her and see if we can help her get on track here. I would never serve under her administration. I have my reasons. But I'd be willing to help any kind of way I can besides serving. I'd place a call. Mr. Noonan, you think you'll place a call? You can't place a call to her. You can't find it in yourself to do it. So let's all figure out a way, besides going to court, that we can get this mayor on the right track so we can give the citizens what they deserve. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Watts.
Takes a while tonight. Good evening. Wasn't going to speak tonight, but I don't know if most of you guys are aware of the storm out there. But once again, our CERT team is out in full force, working their butts off. Guess what? For free. Free. We talked about that as 2 budget hearings when I was on council about paying them something. We need to get this done. Another budget year went by and nothing happened. And these guys are out there, $4 a gallon for gas, cost of cars, you know, their stuff on their cars. If they might get hit, then it's going to be a charge on their insurance. We need to get this taken care of. We need to get them some money in their pockets. I had talked to Mr. Fox about this before. Absolutely willing to pay them something like he would a reserve officer too. So I think that's something we need to look at. Now, the other thing, you guys brought it up. I wasn't going to speak about it tonight, but since I came to the mic, I thought, well, what the heck. Come to that committee of the whole meeting last week, and I listened to that whole line from our supposed acting HR director, and believe me, it's an act. This is the person that holds everything up. Do you know how many police officers we've had a chance to hire that have walked because she dragged her feet? Do you know how many firefighters walked that were fully certified to another department because they were tired of waiting? And I'm hearing this week, I just heard about 2 more people that have walked from here for a job because she didn't get back with them. Sure, it's hard to hire police and fire right now, but you know what? We can do better. We can do a lot better. We need somebody in there that gets that process moving and gets them done. It got done under the previous administration, and now we have this new administration and nothing's happening. And it takes 6 months to 8 months to onboard these officers, and we're 20 short right now. We're 9 dispatchers short, you guys said last week. What if you don't have enough dispatchers? What the heck? So, anyways, have a good evening. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Vanderlinden.
As for the police officers, hiring cops. When I went to Macomb Community College to study to be a police officer, they had different cities coming in weekly, trying to get us to come and join their police academies when we got our degree. Anybody going to Macomb nowadays? No one. Are all those officers that are getting trained, getting their education, being hired? Daily. Why isn't Warren? Because we're stuck in the old days. Things need to change. Now, Mr. Goki, you made a good comment about the mayor. You made a good comment about the hiring practices of her. You made a great comment about her not giving you the information that you requested. Mr. Excuse me, it's hard to read the names from here. Mr. Lafferty, did you get your information? Mr. Dwyer, did you get your information? Why are we asking all these questions and making all these comments to the people in the audience who obviously ain't got an answer? She doesn't return our phone calls. So maybe we should subpoena her. We have that right, we have that power. Bring her up to the microphone and make her answer the questions. Embarrass the hell out of her if you have to. Not that you want to, but get the answers that you deserve. Make her show you some damn respect. Another thing is you should start having someone come in every morning and make sure she comes in. Because as I'm hearing it, she's doing the same thing she did when she was in the house. She's a part-time employee. What's she doing the other 3 days? I don't know. But you would think, as a council, looking out for the well-being of the citizens of Warren, that we get our bang for the buck and make sure the mayor does her job. Maybe all these holes would be filled if she was here. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Next is Maggie Huntone.
Yeah, I know some of my sweetie. You okay? Okay. Hi, all. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I was planning to meet the director of the Reason Station, Doug Marshall, here, but he hasn't showed up. So in his stead, we just wanted to let you all know, we are aware that the Reason Station and all of the religious stations in the City Hall are being looked at again. And Doug's point tonight was going to be that the Reason Station is only there because the prayer stations are there. If they leave City Hall, the Reason Station will very quickly follow behind them, and we will not show our faces again unless the prayer stations show up. We support the separation of church and state. We support the right to free speech, but nothing about the prayer station is about free speech, except as it involves having the Reason Station there as a balance to the prayer station. So please be assured, whatever your research shows you, that if the prayer stations go, the Reason Station will quietly and quickly follow behind them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Gloria Sanker.
Good evening, Council. At the Democratic Convention in Chicago, an abortion trailer was parked a couple blocks from the convention, where at least 25 abortions were performed. Planned Parenthood knows this party is no longer the party of life. The women inside the convention wore white to celebrate reproductive freedom. This is one of the main issues of their campaign, abortion. Often, at any time, and through all 9 months of pregnancy, paid by us taxpayers. The idea that abortion should be safe and seldom, as noted by then President Bill Clinton, has been abandoned. At a prior Democratic convention, they took out God, and now they have embraced abortion to be a top issue in their campaign. In fact, Nancy Pelosi recently wanted the words, "So help me God," taken out of the oath of office, words that were placed in the oath for decades. The Democratic Party is no longer the party of President John Kennedy. It's no longer the party of Robert Kennedy. So he is leaving the party because of its socialistic ideals that Kamala has brought to it. In fact, Kamala has introduced a new Democratic Party, one where socialism has been defined as free stuff from the government that the rich pay for. Kamala is pushing for free health care, driver licenses, housing for illegal immigrants, etc. That will cause our benefits to go down. This closely falls on socialism and not capitalism. While free goods sound good, you know someone has to pay, and the benefits we have will get depleted by the millions of illegals coming through our border. This new Democratic Party is less godly. It surely does not respect life, nor does it respect the American flag that they allow to burn during riots without any consequence. And it no longer follows the ideals of the Constitution that we had in place for decades. Her policies will cause premiums to rise and Social Security benefits to go down in value. You choose. These things are no longer hidden. They are in stark view for all to see. President Reagan said, "If we ever forget we are one nation under God, we will be a nation gone under." Good to remember when we go to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Marshall.
I'm Douglas Marshall. I have been a Warren resident for 38 years. I'm director of the Reason Station. The Reason Station is a protest of the City of Warren's violation of the First Amendment by allowing a religion to proselytize in the City Hall. Part of our mission is to bring the city in compliance with the First Amendment. Our presence in the City Hall has had minimal effects since we started there in 2015. But in April of this year, we started using blasphemy table displays, which seemed to brought the attention of some, because last week I was told there was talk of banning all tabling in the City Hall. I will state that none of the Reason Station's volunteers want to spend any time in City Hall sitting at a table, as we have other things to divert our attention. The only purpose of the Reason Station today is to take away the respect and endorsement which the city gives religion by allowing religion to use the City Hall. In the future, we will increase the level of blasphemy until we reach a level which is intolerable to either the religious who are tabling or the city. The Reason Station plans to remain in City Hall until the city stops allowing religion using it. As soon as the religion is removed from city property, the Reason Station plans to immediately leave. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of audience.
Next item.
Next item.
Council response, Madam Chair.
Ms. Moore.
Yes. One of the speakers spoke about mini bikes in the parks. I believe we do, that is against the law to have mini bikes in the parks. The city's well aware of, the police department's well aware. And we actually have a mini bike problem because, you know, if you've seen these kids try to get away from the police, they're pretty savvy and they can go in little areas with their mini bikes. And I think one night it was reported that there were 200 mini bikes on 8 Mile Road altogether. In sort of a show of defiance, I guess. So it's kind of hard to catch these kids. And one of the things you have to keep in mind, where are they getting those mini bikes? Their parents are buying them for them. So maybe it's the parents we need to educate that they shouldn't be buying mini bikes that are illegal on every street, every property in the city. I don't know, I mean, you know, maybe Mr. Boyke and Mr. Dwyer would know better than I where you can ride a mini bike, but it's certainly not in our parks. So
pretty limited.
Yeah, that's what I think. But there is a problem because these kids are fast. And I hear on scanners sometimes I'm trying to catch them and you just can't. You know, they go in between things. So I think that's something they're aware of and it is a problem. I would remind everyone that we are still taking applications for the Election Commission. We have those open until August 30th. You can go online and fill out an application or call the council office and they will help you with that. And I think that is it for me. Happy Labor Day, everyone.
Madam President.
Mr. Noonan.
I too have been fielding complaints about motorbikes driven by kids who seem to be underage. They should have, if they're going to be driving them, they should have a license for them. They should have a license plate, I believe. And if they're underage, then maybe their parents would have to sign off in order to get a license. But I think that you're right, that there are mini bike trails up north from here somewhere. They're not even in the city of Warren as far as I know. But they're driving illegally. Their parents should not let them do that. They are causing great consternation in the public, and that's really bad. Also, I got an admittedly anonymous report that in the senior housing, one lady's apartment has been flooded 7 times this year, and that apparently the administration there isn't doing anything to correct that problem. An option would be to move that person who's having all those floods into a drier apartment, then when the next time one opens up, or maybe talk to the city engineer to figure out how to fix it. I got a lot of complaints from the senior housing, from people living there, but they don't want to come out in public because they feel that
Mr. Noonan, this is the council response to audience.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you want to add it to the agenda for next meeting to discuss?
I'll fit it in somewhere.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other response, audience response? I wanted to make one note that there was a number of folks on Election Day. Michelle spoke about polling locations. Unfortunately, City Council nor the Mayor's office really has any jurisdiction over that. That comes from the clerk's office, and it is the clerk's responsibility to plan accordingly and make sure that voters are aware when polling locations move. So we are equally, I think many of us were equally upset. Mr. Lafferty was out in front of a polling location for, I think, a couple of hours redirecting folks. And so just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that unfortunately we don't have any oversight over elections.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Dwyer.
One last thing, just to keep everybody in the loop regarding the Pride event that took place on June 29th. We did get a response from the mayor's office through the acting city attorney. There are a couple of things I'm looking to get clarification on. So we're staying on top of that, and there will certainly be more to follow. Thank you.
Hearing nothing else, I will motion to adjourn, or I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.